What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. Rhomas Men's Team, pretty straightforward to help each other meet each other's goals as men. Talking about Peaky Blinders right now, given the, what do they call that hat you have on, MFG?
I have no idea.
It's like no one can agree on a name for that hat. No one knows what to call that.
I don't know.
The hat with no name.
I'm genetically predisposed from a profile standpoint. This hat just works.
Let's see. It could be called a flat cap, or hey Phil, you are correct. So it's called either the flat cap, the Baker Boy, or the Newsboy cap. Yeah. So it's funny. So I gotta let you guys in on on a weird stretch of analysis I've been doing here. I just watched the Tupac Shakur kind of documentary, but like I don't know what they call it, but it's still like, sort of like dramatized. And then the Biggie Smalls movie with Johnny Depp, I forget what that was called. Excuse me. I also watched it was the NWA Straight Outta Compton movie, and then I'm listening to Robert Greene's 50th Law book, or 50th Law of Power, about 50 Cent. And then I watched one other thing, I forget what it was, but because I was just kind of interested, and it's very aligned with like Peaky Blinders. These authors and I guess journalists are following sort of the rags to riches from like gangsters to like mainstream, leaders in their industries. And it's just really fascinating. One of the things I found fascinating was those people like 50 Cent, Suge Knight, who was Tupac's manager, et cetera, almost across the board, they almost had an edge because they would get into these boardrooms and essentially would be like, okay, I don't care what the contract says because you screwed me over. You know that you did. I didn't know what I was doing. And if you don't get me out of this, I'm just going to shoot you. Like they've reverted back to what they learned at the base level. And these guys who graduated from Harvard didn't have that grit because they didn't have to. They started at level 20, not level 0. Does that make sense? So I think it's an interesting pattern. I know it's just kind of out of the blue here. But MFG, what do you think about that? Right? Like, if you start from the bottom, do you learn certain things that just you don't get to learn when you start living off of dad's trust fund from day one? What's your take on that life pattern?
I think it can be a help or hindrance depending on where it shows up. I know for myself, there could be times where I've had situations with people and I've been willing to escalate it beyond where they were comfortable with. And just in the kind of way that you communicate things or carry yourself, it changes the dynamic. But truth be told, it's an effective tool. But for myself personally, it doesn't fucking feel good. So for me to do it, so in my experience, I think it's something better to let go of. I think it's good to have that internally, but when you have to outwardly posture and bring that into a setting where it perhaps doesn't belong, I think there's maybe more effective ways to communicate that less directly.
Yeah. So to that point, because obviously you're correct, right? Like there's a reason that behavior is not condoned. While at the same time, me trying to like empathize and understand these guys' line of logic, it's like, hey, we don't have to go there, but if you're gonna white collar bully me, right? I will blue collar bully you back, right? Just to equal the playing field here. What do they say? It's like God made man and cult made them equal, something like that. Again, not condoning any of that stuff, but there's something interesting about it.
You're also putting yourself in a position where you're kind of disgracing yourself to yourself. Like I can think of one example where I had a landlord that when I went to go leave the apartment, I had done a ton of upgrades to the place and, you know, custom blinds, new fixtures, all kinds of stuff. And I was just leaving it behind. And the guy was being quite insufferable when I moved out. And, you know, because I move out, the place is in perfect condition. I'm like, all right, can I grab my security deposit back? And he starts going back and forth with me and says, well, you know, technically I can hold this for 90 days. And we're out on the front steps of the apartment and it's a brick stairway and had like loose bricks on it. So I reached down and grabbed the brick and I said, yeah, I could smash your fucking skull in and take all the money out of your pocket too, but I don't want to do that either. So why don't you just give me my money? And that's a funny story, but that's not a fun guy to be around.
Yeah.
And you're not creating a set of stable expectations for those around you, you know? And then also too, it doesn't really, I don't know, man. It's kind of like I'm embarrassed to tell that story as much as we can laugh about it, but it's like, the fuck was I thinking? You know, so I think that it can be a useful tool along the path, but I think it's one that you should try to replace or shed at some point.
I wonder if it's something like Jordan Peterson talks about, because I think Jordan Peterson does an excellent job of towing the line between like just talking about being a gorilla versus being actually strong, but you are like sheathing your sword and choosing not to use it. That whole saying of like better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. I think there's something to that, right? Of like, you're not going to push me around, right? Not that we're ever going to escalate things too many rungs up the ladder without going through each step of the rung. Do you know what I mean? I think MFG, what you're referring to, completely agree with you. If somebody says, well, no, you know, I'm just not going to pay my fair share of the $10 bill that's owed, and you escalate it to like, well, then I'll just like punch your face in, right? Like that's not learning all the rungs of the ladder. But again, it was just fascinating to see, right? Like these guys got ahead of like, hey, I might lack what I lack in intelligence, you lack in strength on the other side, physical strength and ability on the other side. So let's just call it even and be fair with each other, right? I don't want you to sue me, and you don't want me to beat the hell out of you, right? So how about we just both have each other's best interest in mind, and we can build a relationship. Ray, what's your take? By the way, Ray, this all came from MFG's newsboy cap that he had that was represented with Peaky Blinders, hence the conversation. So sorry, well, please rip on it, Ray.
Yeah, obviously. It's a great conversation. I love Mike's contribution because it's what, you know, we sometimes call book smarts versus street smarts, right? Now, I'm more book smart, and my younger brother, Frank, for example, is more street smart. And I wish I had more of his street smarts, and that's what you're referring to, Wes. That's what the NWA kind of band members brought to the table when they were trying to be big time by the suits, I guess. And I mean, I really like Mike's honesty about, you know, how often do you want to be that guy, you know, who kind of operates by the laws of the jungle, right? I appreciate that because it's more of because I fantasize about having those street smarts because I don't have them, right? The reality is, I think in business, to succeed in business, you need both. You know, a business degree, a law degree does not prepare you to negotiate a deal, to make a deal, to run a business. Those are book smarts and street smarts, which are some part of your formation and training, but not everything, not even close. But I think Mike's right also, where like the person with exclusively street smarts probably feels that there is a kind of void or an absence or something lacking in their skill set too. And so, so my question to you, Wes, is like, how do you acquire both?
Yeah, it's a good, it's going to sound like a really weird answer. I think jiu-jitsu has really bridged the gap in a very meaningful way, right? Like, I love what Joe Rogan said. It's like, if you go into a common jiu-jitsu gym, it's a whole bunch of nerds learning how to be killers, like in a real way. But have you ever seen that guy, Mikey Massimini, I think his name is? He's like one of the world champions at a certain weight class in jiu-jitsu, from my understanding. And the dude is awesome. Like, he's an awesome representation of what a warrior should be. Super nice guy, and wants to invite people to the sport and saying, hey, don't, this is about camaraderie. It's about brotherhood. It's about raising each other up, to the point where he whooped this one dude's ass. But prior to the match, his opponent was like talking shit, like hardcore, like, and just being a jerk. And at the end of the match, Mikey Massimini gave this little speech of like, what my opponent did was disgusting. And that could turn a lot of people off to this sport. It doesn't have to be all this stuff. You don't have to talk about my religion. You don't have to talk about my mom, or whatever the guy was doing, right? It's like, just learn how to get good at the craft. And our craft teaches you how to defend yourself. It should also be about how to be respectful towards yourself and towards others. So just a great example of, like, in my opinion, what a warrior should be. It shouldn't be this gangster type of thing. It shouldn't be this disrespectful thing. But it's like, hey, I should be able to be able to defend myself and my family.
And so I love how Mike said, do you really want to disgrace yourself like that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because in your telling of Wes, in your retelling of the movie you saw, there was this kind of like level playing field that was obtained because of the guys from the hood bringing their street smarts and their survival skills, and then the guys who were top of their class at Harvard or in their synagogue or whatever, and and their survival skills that got them there, right? And there was this kind of level like playing field. But I think but I think it's great how Mike put it into perspective for us.
I think that a good example of being able to be on both sides of the equation is ironically, Wes, you mentioned him earlier, but someone like 50 Cent, who, certainly, lived that life of violence and things of that nature, but has kind of transcended that over to the business world, where he's become massively successful. And I wouldn't imagine that he has to have those moments or conversations in any meetings, so I think, and also too, it's interesting. I think that at a certain point, it can't be performative. If it's something that is within you, you'll convey it outwardly, even without having to be that direct. Like I think back, my father was a Green Beret in Vietnam, Special Forces guy, just a general all-around badass. But he wasn't a big guy. He was maybe 5'7", 5'8", 160 pounds. But nobody would ever, even as a kid, anywhere he went, nobody would ever fuck with him. Mm-hmm. Not because he had to, present himself in a certain way, but just the way that he carried himself. So I think there's something to that, to perhaps not necessarily having to have, as you mentioned, Ray, like street smarts. But I think part of that is having a very sincere, well-founded confidence and competency within yourself that comes outward. And that could be in any field. And you'll be able to convey the same message without hitting somebody with a brick.
Yeah, it's fascinating because one of the pieces, I completely agree with you, MFG. Completely agree with you. I think.
But Wes,
yeah,
if everything's a practice and everything can be learned, how do guys like me learn that?
MMA.
Like, what's the? Okay.
If I had to give like a one, like an easy answer,
a 3-letter answer,
like actually learn how to fight.
Yeah.
Right. And the cool thing is now we're now at a level of acquiring fighting data honestly through the UFC, in my opinion, right? Like that, like if you look back to the UFC when it was originally created, like that was the tournament, UFC 1, 2, and 3, I believe. That was the tournament. It's like, okay, what styles of fighting actually work? Jiu-jitsu, wrestling, Muay Thai, like kickboxing, that combination right there, right? Like any one of those, you're good to go. And
so
then
Wes,
it's just practicing skill.
I got a text from my old dojo saying like, hey, we're reaching out to people who used to be clients, and like you can get a free month if you want to start again or something. So would you be your recommendation that I get back on the mat?
100%. Oh yeah. I mean, and here's the thing, right? Like I actually do think this kind of stuff carries over into the boardroom, into business meetings, into interactions. If you ever watch like a fight on YouTube, like a an amateur fight, you can usually tell, like your instincts can tell who the weaker minded or less confident individual is. And oftentimes it's this guy like yelling, like creating all these this big dog and pony show because he's trying to create this elaborate facade that he really cannot handle himself, right? And in everyday interaction, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this. In fact, I witnessed this. This is crazy. I witnessed this yesterday. I didn't even think about this. After I'm getting lunch, these two guys who are easily older than 60 years old pull each other over into a parking lot, get out, and just start going at it like verbally. And I could tell immediately who was big hat, no cattle, right? Like all bark, no bite sort of a thing. Because he was yelling really loud, but you could see in his micro steps, he would take a little step back when the guy would step forward. Do you know what I mean? And then kind of like a little chihuahua goes and like barks back when the guy starts walking away, like, and all that stuff. And his words were really big, like saying like very threatening things. One of them was like, I used to be an NHL hockey player. And the guy's like, I don't fucking care. Then come closer, right? And all these other words while the guy was not getting any closer, And I think oftentimes just in general conflict, like maybe Ray with your neighbor when you had that conflict of like the parking situation or whatever it was, when a guy starts to look down a little bit, you can tell, right? It's like you're not wanting to make eye contact with me. Your words might be saying one thing, but your eyes are really showing me your cards. But anyway, Phil, I'd love to get your perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about fighting. I definitely think like the what's his name, Nurmagomedov versus what's his name, the fucking Irish
McGregor.
Jackass, McGregor. That was such a funny thing because
we gonna take that, Givens? We just gonna let him say that?
Yeah. So like the way that like Nurmagomedov operates obviously is just like peak fucking alpha male, like he's like he was saying, wasn't he saying like let's talk now while he was like punching him in the face? Like that's so fucking bad. That's like unbelievably badass. Like McGregor's just being a little bitch like he always is, like fucking making fun of his family and like his brother and shit, and like just complete scumbag. And then Nurmagomedov's destroying him in the fight and like punching him in the face while McGregor's on the ground, and he's saying, "Look," he's like, "Let's talk now. Talk now. Talk now. Talk to me now, you little bitch." It's fucking just incredible the way the mindset he has. But like I think what you guys were saying earlier was making me think like it seems like with starting at the beginning or starting at level 10 or whatever, it seems like almost no one these days even thinks it's possible to start at the beginning. They think if you're going to start at the beginning, you're going to lose. That's what everyone thinks. Like if you listen to like, any advice, like in games, it's like making a game from scratch without using other people's tools to help you. People think that's impossible. It's completely not. It's not even very hard. You can learn that in less than a year. You could become extremely competent at making a game entirely on your own using no external tools. Other than a computer, you just make everything else from scratch. You can completely do that, and anyone can learn to do that. It's not very hard. Also, like TikTok finance advice is like Well, first, what you need to do is find a way to take an enormous amount of debt and then suck the equity out of that debt, and then take even more debt and leverage that into a 10,000x trade that makes you a billionaire in one move. It's like that's literally like financial advice these days. Is like the most psychotic trying to skip the line ever. Like it seems like most people these days, like if you gave them Warren Buffett's advice, they'd be like, "This guy's an idiot. This guy is 100% an idiot, and I'm never going to do that. I'm going to take on $1 million in debt right now because that's how you get ahead." I don't know. I don't have much other to say than that, but that just seems like that's the way everyone feels these days, and I feel like there are a lot of legitimate reasons to feel that way. Buying a house seems impossible, even though it's not. But you know, it does feel like a lot of the games we play have become not stacked against you, but very difficult compared to how they were. At least that's the perception. But yeah, obviously starting at the beginning is, that's actually, I was just listening to Bill Burr a couple days ago, and he said that, I think he said Dave Chappelle gave him that advice when he was sort of not quite blowing up yet, but he was pretty experienced. I think he said, Chappelle said to him, the way that you're doing comedy is going to take longer, but once you do blow up, you're going to be huge and also very strong foundation because you're doing it the right way, but it's going to take longer.
And to relate, that's so funny. A mantra I've been repeating to myself as of the last like 5 months is what I learned in jiu-jitsu, which was position before submission, which is like has been really profound for me. And like what everybody sees is the final move is the submission. They think that's the thing. It's like, no, that's 2% of the work. 98% of the effort prior to that, all of those little micro movements to work your way up, from the feet all the way up to the throat. That's what won the match. Once you get to the submission, that's the easy part. That's the last inch. The hard part is getting like all of that scaffolding to get up to there. And that's why I love the story you just told, like the Chappelle and Bill Burr situation. Like, yeah, you might think you want the $1 million job or business right now. You wouldn't be able to handle it, right? Because on day one, you will instantly find out that you lack the fundamentals. It's like the parents who want their kid to get into Harvard. It's like, no, that would be the most psychologically damaging thing you could do to your child, because they're a SEAL and you're putting them in shark land. They don't deserve to be that in a skill set standpoint. They don't have the skills to be there. Is that really what you want to do? Or is that a recipe for suicide? You have to build the fundamentals from the ground up. MFG, what's your perspective?
It's hard to do it that way. And it's hard to stay motivated while you're doing it that way. But ultimately, you just have to chip away at stuff. And that, because like you said, you're building a solid foundation, you're developing the fundamentals. And I think more importantly, it's about integrating your actions internally, because you can go through the actions and the behaviors and do the things, but if it's not congruent within you, then you're just like, it's almost performative or a persona. And then when the success shows up, you ultimately will fuck it up. But I think that's the only, don't get me wrong, there's people that have, quick success and they can sustain it. That's great. But I think more the norm is just slowly building. It's all that little bit of work that you did here, a little bit of work there. And then the results show up and it seems like, like wild, like how did this get to this point? But when you go backwards, it wasn't one thing. It's never one thing. I've had a similar experience lately where I've gotten back into doing electrical work. I took 20 years off of doing it. And I was terrified to go back because I'm like, I went through it like a temp agency. It's like skilled labor temp agency. So it paid really well, about 40% over what the market bears if I was to go direct to a company. But the whole time I'm just like thinking, oh man, I haven't done this in so long. I'm going to they're going to fucking shit can me the first day. I'm never going to be able to keep it going. But when I showed up, I went to school for electrical in high school. I worked as an electrician from 14 to like 21. As soon as I got back on site, everything showed back up. All of the, and within 3 or 4 days of just getting up to speed with things again, all of a sudden now I'm like running circles around the rest of this company's crew, to the point that they had initially, they were going to keep me there for a month to help them finish this project. And they ended up keeping me for almost 3 months, at a cost, which to have me there, it costs them about 3 to 4 times as much to have one of their own employees there. So they kept me over their employees because of productivity, and it wasn't because like I had just learned all this stuff one time, or it was just one,
right.
Lucky thing. It was all those years of those little things, you know what I mean? Working in different trades, picking up this small thing here that translates, that small thing there, and it same goes with your personal growth. There's very few like epiphanous big watershed moments, but at least for me, oftentimes years will go by and I'll pick my head up and I'll be like, holy shit, how did I get to here from where I once was? So I think as boring as it is, it's just fucking slow and steady is kind of the only real way. And you can work diligently and be enthusiastic and work hard. It's not like from a place of like apathy or giving up or like, oh, I guess I got to just do it the slow way. No, you got to do it the slow way enthusiastically. You know what I mean? And build that solid base up as you go.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know, if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode. And I would almost say, to add to that, is not only building slow enthusiastically, but directionally as well. Because I think the real talk about it is, yeah, somebody can get lost in perpetual mastery at like level 1.
Right.
So, but if you don't do what it takes to get to level 2 and level 3 and level 4, it's hard to get the results or the rewards that you're worthy of, right? If you're only going to say, oh, I'm going to be the best person at taking out trash, you could do that for the rest of your life until you say, you know what, but now I'm going to start a little company that takes out trash, and then boom and boom and boom and boom, and all of a sudden you become Wayne. I believe his name is Wayne Huizenga, who was the owner of Waste Management. I think he's a billionaire now. Something crazy, right? Yeah. So what do you think about that, Mike? Right? It's like, of not just like doing the work methodically, enthusiastically, but also directionally.
I think directionally, and also too, you have to be aware of what you're doing, and what I mean by that is like you have to recognize and integrate that growth as you make it, because if you're doing more or you're gaining competency, but you're not internalizing that and adding that to your self-worth, then at least in my experience, fear would always hold me back from doing the next thing. But if you can push past that and continue to acquire those skills, but kind of have, like you said, like a North Star, like we're going to continue to move the ball forward. So when you get to one point, it's like, all right, well, what more can I do? Or what's the next thing I can do? I think to stay in almost that pursuit mindset rather than stagnation.
Yeah, the visual that you're giving me is like some sort of like, you have to measure, I don't know, like the latitude and longitude, or like you have to measure on the x-axis and the y-axis. If you're just going, like, let's say if we're going along the y-axis, we just go straight up, but you don't have the fundamental skill along the x-axis, then you're just going to collapse. I mean, this is a lottery ticket winner. Yeah, you acquired $5 million, but you have no skill, and so it's just a matter of time before it goes away. On the other side, we probably all know people who've done a really phenomenal job along the x-axis of getting really skilled at a craft, but not getting paid what they're worth, because maybe they didn't learn the extra skills, the social skills, the political skills, the diplomatic skills, right? Like the self-confidence skills of saying, hey, I'm worth this, I want more money. Hey, I'm worth this, I'm going to start my own business. So they're not escalating up the y-axis. Bill, what's your take on that?
One of my pretty much like my best friend I've known since like fourth grade is always, he's like, his dad even makes fun of him for this, like constantly changing interests. And it really yeah, it's like he's done so many different jobs. Like first he got really into fitness in high school, and then he switched. He wanted to become like a trainer or whatever, and then he's like, no, actually I'm gonna become an EMT, and became an EMT or whatever, and then he just like stopped doing that completely, and then he's doing like this other job, and now he went to a boot camp to learn web development, and then he got really good. He got so close to being, basically he's almost able to become a web developer, which is obviously a very well paying job if you work at it. And like now that he's actually pretty good at making websites, now he's like just lost interest in making websites, and now he's like on this new thing about he wants to make like a business selling t-shirts. And I'm like, dude, like this is a whole different skill. Like why are you
Yep.
You're just resetting every time. And it's like, obviously it seems obvious to me. I don't actually know what the specific fear is for him, but you know, I do the same thing in ways, and like it seems obvious to me that like the same thing is going to happen every time in every skill, is that once you get past level 2 or 3 or whatever, it gets hard, and it gets, you know, the amount of gains you get slow down a lot, and it gets scary, and it seems it's confusing, you know, and it gets like anxious or whatever, and it's like this isn't the way I thought it was going to be. I thought it's always this perpetual, like I thought it was going to be, I just learn this and then I'm going 100 miles an hour, you know. It's like, and I always feel that way too. I totally understand that a lot, like, but yeah, I don't know. But I mean, also the other side of it is like, you know, sure, he is switching. He would make a lot more progress if he's stuck on one thing, but also like you know, he does have a breadth of knowledge now. Like he's been an EMT. That's a serious amount of knowledge he can apply to a lot of different stuff, I guess. He has a lot of different skills and a lot of different knowledge that he could bring together into things or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of resetting, I guess, in a lot of ways to do that, to keep doing that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Phil, I'd like to add some commentary to that. So there, if we're sticking with like the graph analogy, there's this space along the journey that I call like the dead zone or the zombie zone, which is like in the beginning as you're going along the x-axis, right? It's like which x-axis, let's define as like you're advancing your skill, right? But the y-axis is the compensation that you receive. So you're advancing your skill pretty quickly. So that's intrinsically enjoyable, because like, oh shit, like, you know, I didn't know how to do this earlier, like yesterday, and it feels like I've increased my skill by 500% in, you know, in a day. So you get kind of the dopamine hit from that. But then a few weeks later, that dopamine, like the skill advancement, to your point, is now it's kind of on the margins, right? It's like, oh shit, like now I got to learn this, and it's taking me 5 days just to learn that little micrometer of skill. So you don't get the dopamine, plus you're not getting the compensation yet, because you're like, nobody says, you know what I want to work with? I want to work with the kind of good doctor. Right? Like, so you're in a weird space where you're not acquiring the skills at a rate, and you're also not really getting compensated at all, basically.
Yeah.
So it's like very few people walk through that zombie zone to get to the other end, where it's eventually you hit this intersection where it's like, now you're like a rookie master. And when you get to that level, the compensation goes off the charts, typically. This is why you probably in every single industry, you have these enormous asymmetries where it's like, stand-up comedians don't make any money until they make $500,000 or whatever that is. Like, they don't make any money until they make $100,000. It's 0 or it's 100. Phil, I'm going to assume it's very similar in video game making. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm going to assume it follows a similar pattern. Ray, can you provide a perspective on that weird pattern that I'm referring to?
Yeah, I think what Mike, Phil, and you are talking about is this, like, Mike used the word fear, and like an essential part of this is like getting out of your comfort zone, right? So and staying just on the outside of your comfort zone where the growth occurs. And so for Phil's friend, maybe when he is so close to the finish line, he's too far out of his comfort zone and retreats back in, right? Because it sounds like he loves the learning and the building. Now, like, as I was listening to Phil, I thought that um, there's probably a healthy way to describe what his friend is doing, like always learning, always curious, and there's an unhealthy way to describe it, right? Which is just like he kind of bails before his first paycheck, so or however you want to describe it. And so I think that something that and it ties in. I think it ties into the uh, street smart and book smart kind of like hybrid model, which is if you are raised street smart, you have to go out of that comfort zone into the book smart area where you think you're not as smart as everyone else in the room or not as learned or as you don't have the same educational pedigree, right? In order to compete with both of those skill sets. And I think so. I think that being remaining outside of your comfort zone or being comfortable with stepping out of your comfort zone, I think is a key part of success in all this thing. What do you think, Wes?
Well, let me pass the ball over to MFG because it looks like he's got something.
Yeah, so I think that when you attach your self-worth to external validation, the shortest path to get that hit of validation and dopamine is to get from zero to baseline competency. And as you were saying, Phil, after that, the fucking dopamine drip is way off. You know what I mean? Like if you're out of shape and you start working out and you get these crazy results, it feels amazing. You know what I mean? Your first 2 years training, it transformed you. And then you get to the place like, I don't know, I'm like 23 years in on training and it's fucking boring. It's not exciting. Nobody's jazzed up for me. Nobody's surprised anymore. Nobody's like, oh my God, you look great. Like, no, like that goes away. But I think that the way to because the way to counteract that is to integrate your new skills as part of your self-worth and add that internally and find a way to seek internal validation, because otherwise, you create this cognitive dissonance where it's all of a sudden now I'm not getting the same feedback. And you think that it's because you're doing the wrong thing. And you're not aware that your model of what you're doing is the problem. So, you have to have the self-awareness to realize or to even ask yourself the question, why am I doing this? Am I doing this? Why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? What is the next step that I'm going to? Because otherwise, before you know it, you're bringing all your own bullshit and your own, narrative of the world or your own, feedback loops, and you're bringing it into a sphere where it's just not going to work out professionally. It's you have to you got to keep turning the thermostat up. If all you're looking for is if it becomes part of your identity, as it did for me for quite some time, because I can go from zero to competent, especially in any type of skilled trade, very quickly. And that's exciting. You know what I mean? And you're surprised by yourself and everything's new and there's a whole, you know what I mean? Whereas, it's, if you got to continue to challenge yourself and really control. I saw, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chase Hughes. He's a behavioral expert, ran PSYOPs and interrogations for the military. He does it for private companies now. Yeah, look him up, Wes. I'll send you some videos after this.
Yeah, please. I just looked him up. Yeah, send it over.
But he's got a great video on goal setting for 2025, which I would love for us to cover perhaps on Monday, because it goes beyond the tactical methods and moves to things like, where are you getting your fucking dopamine from, right? Because the times when I felt the most congruent and the most aligned within myself, personally, artistically, professionally, was ironically the time that I was stuck in the fucking van with no disposable income, with zero certainty, but I loved what I was doing. I saw I could go somewhere. I kept getting better at it. But more importantly, my dopamine sources were very fucking limited. I had no disposable income. I'm living in a fucking van with my dog. So there's not much you can do besides go hiking, work out, you know what I mean? Read, consume, different, media as far as like self-improvement, psychology, and awareness. So all of a sudden, those become your dopamine sources. So now, when you're looking for dopamine, you're not going to into a fucking Reese's cup relapse, you know what I mean? Or you're not, chasing down some girl on Tinder just to get the validation of getting some pussy. You're actually moving to a place where, okay, now my dopamine, I've brainwashed myself down there so that my dopamine sources served me. And it was completely unintentional. It was driven by the circumstances, and I was just doing the best I could. And as I looked back on that after watching that video, I really see how important it is not only to craft the internal narrative, have a plan, know where you're going, but also manage yourself and where you're going to get that dopamine from. Like when I was down in North Carolina, I didn't fucking watch any Netflix or TV, or like there was no like going out. There was because I didn't really know anybody down there. I didn't have a sense of community. So the only dopamine I could get was from these pure places that allowed me to gain that clarity. So I think that, and I'll post that video in the Discord for everyone too. I think that would be of service to a lot of us, because you can, and because, it's easy to fall into the trap of being just a little bit smarter than average. And then you think that like, well, it should be easier for me, if you're honest. You know what I mean? If I'm honest with myself, that is a shitty narrative belief where I think, okay, but what about me? I'm special. It's not going to be that hard for me, but when you start to derive your dopamine sources from those things, like I fucking brainwashed myself that like nothing makes me happier than working out like a fucking lunatic, listening to David Goggins compilations every morning. Nothing feels better than like going hiking. It's fucking freezing up here in Maine in the middle of winter. I'm depressed as shit because it's like, some days it's like fucking 7 degrees. I mean, I'm not built for hiking in that weather. You know what I mean? But it's, I think that's a really powerful, underutilized concept that I've came across in the past few weeks that I'm kind of exploring now. What are your thoughts on that, Ray?
Wow, man. I'm just listening and learning, dude. That's great stuff. Like, you got to deprogram yourself away from all those external validations. And like, I think you didn't say it like this, I don't think, but if you weren't in that van, without Wi-Fi and without a big flat screen TV, you probably wouldn't have been on the same journey of self, right? And so I would say it's harder for those who have the flat screen and the comfort, right? Like I'm living in my mom's basement, and that is prompting me. I mean, I'm on a similar journey as the one you described, where I have to be careful about what food I buy and eat, because we got a small kind of like dorm room beer fridge, kind of, waist high thing, as opposed to a giant double door fridge that someone else is packing with tasty stuff, right? And so by being pushed to the margins, I have to decide what's really important to me, and I get and in 12-step recovery, we call that the gift of desperation, where you want to get healthy so bad that you actually do something about it, right? And so in that way, I have to thank you for reminding me that whatever material downgrade I'm currently experiencing is a blessing, because the material abundance was not making me happy, making me feel fulfilled, and want like to kind of act from my higher self and all that.
Because you had the external validation of the things that you had, and you conflated your access to resources and fancy shit and trips as part of your identity falsely. And now
Absolutely.
you're realizing that you're just you.
Right. And so I don't have the new car, the fancy address, the new phone, and then and
It's
all
all a
those.
facade, isn't it? It's a facade.
Absolutely, it is, dude. Absolutely, it is. But and what I'm really curious about this goal setting 2025 by Chase Hughes, because it was like it was a feast of dopamine, the way I used to live.
I used to see the fucking Instagram stories from fucking Odd Basil. Like, you fucking belong there.
Help me out, Wes. Help me out, please. Bail me out.
Let me throw something out. Maybe we explore this topic next time because it's probably a bigger topic. But like, there's an element, a pattern that I've noticed with myself, and I think a lot of other people that I admire, and it's getting dopamine from being useful to others. I think there's a part of that graph that we didn't talk about. It's like, yeah, once you reach a certain level of skill, my wish would be that all men could get there, that they could experience what it's like to go through the zombie zone of where you're not getting any real feedback. You're not getting feedback from a monetary perspective. You're not getting feedback from the market because they're not employing you yet. And you're not getting even feedback from your own, right, like own skill set advancement. But like, if you fight through that and you reach this intersection where all of a sudden you can deploy that skill and it gives value to somebody else, you feel useful to another human, and they look back at you and they give you some sort of representation of like, hey man, that was super helpful, or hey, here's $1,000 or whatever it is. Like, I think that zone, whatever we would want to call that in my opinion is where you can live in perpetuity. It just takes a while to fucking get there, and most people dabble, they stop before they get there, they try the next thing. Phil, what's your take?
I think while Mike was explaining all that, I was thinking like, yeah, one of my biggest weaknesses has been a very very big lacking in enjoying the process. I'm always like enjoying, I always enjoy the results. Obviously, it's easy to do that. And there's always, every once in a while I come across a really cool example of just like someone who's like, they're just doing stuff and they seem to get so much joy out of like every little step building whatever they're building. And like, yeah, that's always, sometimes every once in a while, rarely, I get into that mindset, and it feels great to just be like, it's just it's a more present mindset. It's just like noticing the details and like noticing like the way this is going right now is going the way I want it to, and I'm going to keep doing that or whatever. And then, enjoying that rather than just enjoying like, oh, I got I got to the end of the process, and that end result is cool too. But it's like, enjoying the process itself seems like pretty important part of this equation.
I wonder, Phil, if it's more of a menu selection daily as each time you step up to the plate of acquiring the skill of your craft, of like, hey, a certain percentage of the time when I sit down to do my writing or whatever it is, a certain percentage of the time it's because I'm enjoying the process. But the other 3 days out of the 10 or whatever it is, I'm just grinding through. The other 2 days, it's because I'm thinking about that guy who told me I couldn't do it. The other 2 days, it's because I know I got to pay for my grandmother's taxes. Or, do you know what I mean? So I wonder if there's a thing there where it's more of a menu selection on a daily basis than it is like, oh yeah, like, I have this like fountain of youth situation where I always use just one thing and it always just replenishes my ambition. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know what exactly it is. I don't know what exactly it is that's causing this, but yeah, for sure, definitely like being distracted for sure is a big thing, or just being overwhelmed by the challenges around or whatever. But like, Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah.
Wes, what I hear from you is, if I hear you correctly, is that enjoying the process might be the language that Phil and I use to describe sticking with it, right?
Yeah.
Because
Almost
we
like,
imagine that like we will only stick with it if we're enjoying it, right?
yeah.
So you're suggesting replace enjoying. And what you're suggesting is the actual a menu of options for sticking with it includes. Go ahead.
Ray, I think you're spot on. So it's like changing it to enjoying the process. Like, no, doing the process. And then one of the pieces could be enjoying it. Like every Tuesday, you enjoy it. Every Wednesday, you fucking hate it, but you do it. Do you know what I mean? Every Thursday, it's like I get my motivation because I remember my mom and I want to change my family tree. And now I'm motivated. So it's like almost like the menu of motivational items. Because I almost wonder if enjoying the process, a lot of people who are doers are like, hey, the dirty little secret is like, even if I said that in my last interview, if I was really self-reflective, it's like, hey, 40% of the time, I fucking hate the process. I
Yeah,
just
and
do it.
there's tools you can activate, right? For example, so part of my recovery from 12-step recovery is I call my homie who's on the journey with me, Lawrence, every single day. And the earlier in the morning I call him, the better the trajectory of my day is, right? And so there's that accountability of the team. If for work stuff, I will tell my girlfriend the night before, hey, you want to give me a gentle reminder to do the following thing tomorrow? Because maybe I've been like sleeping on it for 3 or 4 days, and I know that I'm just going to want to pass the buck again tomorrow. So there's different tools, right? Those are kind of team accountability, both of them, but there's different tools that can keep us dialed in um, when we are not enjoying the process. That's something else that comes to mind.
Yep, exactly. MFG, final words of wisdom, brother.
So I think you're dead right, Wes. You have to do this every day. You have to manage your dopamine sources. You have to really have a clear self-awareness of where your identity is. And at least for myself, external validation is my kryptonite. If I can, I'll take that and I fell into this trap over the past few months. Got back with my ex from 7 years ago, living, with her full time, you know what I mean? Working full time, doing all that shit. And all of a sudden it's like, now my dopamine source is different. It's from her validation. Yeah. She's a fucking train wreck. So like, then you're riding that wave of somebody else. And then
yep.
I didn't train for like months. I was working, 14-hour days, didn't work out at all. My diet was terrible. And all of a sudden I just felt fucking lost. You know what I mean? And I felt like I lost myself. So I think once you figure these things out, the daily practice becomes managing that and keeping that on track. And however that is, like Ray, for you get your buddy your call every day. You should be calling him at fucking 6 a.m. It should be the wake up call. You know what I mean? Because that's for me. If I work out at 4 or 5 in the morning, the rest of my day is fucking set because I've aligned my mindset. I'm congruent, and no matter how the rest of the day goes, it's gonna be better than if I didn't train. So I think that we'll all get a lot out of that, Chase Hughes, and then finding ways to it's not about to your point, Wes, what you've done professionally. Technically, you could tell someone how to do it, right? Like it's not that crazy, I'm not diminishing your success by any stretch, but it's a process. It's possible. Yep. 100%. But I would imagine that if you had to speak to your degree of success that you've experienced, it has much more to do with your narratives, your mindset, your self-management than it does any technical, logistical, or circumstantial challenges you may have faced.
And completely agree that I think it's super important, the marriage of the psychological and the technical components, for sure.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, at least for me, it's I'm just getting back on track with those baseline things, and I'll share my goals in the Discord, but for 2025, they would almost seem foolish or seem like I'm shooting low, but I think that there's, at least for me, value in, because I'm the guy like Phil's friend. I've fucking done everything, and then I can do it well enough, and then I can do it well enough, and then I can do it well enough. But I never just stay in one spot and grind it out long term. So those are some of my goals for 2025. Just keep it simple, and by doing that, I feel as though it opens up additional bandwidth mentally. It opens up additional self-awareness and clarity as to what you're doing when you remove all the ups and downs that I myself have created for myself in the past.
Love it. As always,
Awesome.
I love your vulnerability and introspective analysis, right, of your own skills and deficiencies by what you're referring to. So thank you, man. Phil, final words of wisdom, brother.
Yeah, I don't really know what my final words are. There, I randomly saw this YouTube video a week ago that was pretty hilarious. This guy, who's like in his early 20s, bought his own house. He's like a YouTuber or whatever, so he's looking for things to film and make videos about. And he literally like did the thing that we all already know is true, but he brought two of his viewers who are like 20-year-old like deadbeats to live in his house and try to like fix their behavior, and it completely failed. And it was just crazy how literally he gave them a house. They were paying rent. They stopped paying rent. He just let them live there, and they weren't getting a job. And so he got them a job, and they didn't go to the interview. And then he got them gig work. Like there's this Amazon job where you can just do 2 to 5 hours of work at a time, and they just wouldn't do it. And then he would get spots booked for them on his app, and then let her and her husband get the blocks, like, so they don't even have to do the work of clicking the block button. And he would like swap the blocks really quickly over to their account, and then they would just like go and do the work and then just like stop working. It was like it was crazy. It was so crazy. He literally ended up buying them a Model 3 Tesla because she was saying my car is broken and I don't like to work with no AC. And so he bought a $25,000 Tesla, and then she still wouldn't work. And it was just so crazy to watch. It was so crazy seeing that someone actually did that experiment, and it went exactly how we all know it would.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Love it. That was outstanding. Ray, final words of wisdom, brother.
Yeah, Phil, I lived my own version of that. Being given stuff and not being activated in the same way as earning all that stuff. The slow and hard way, right? Guys, I love listening when I'm with you. I love being connected to you guys. This makes me stronger, and we're building a slow foundation. No one's getting rich quick here. No one's getting abs in 3 weeks or whatever. We're building a super strong foundation. So I love you guys for helping me like that. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. My final words of wisdom. I have to pay attention to you guys telling me 5 million times that this app sucks. So, with that being said, I'm completely deficient in this skill. I'm open to suggestions as long as Phil, MFG, and Ray are cool with it as well. Whatever you guys think, like, why don't we just fucking make a transition somewhere? Because I don't want it to be a bad experience for any of us. And I apologize it's taken me this long. I'm almost embarrassed. I am embarrassed to even this. I think it's the first time I'm bringing this up. Yeah. So I'll take whatever suggestions you guys think. I think there's something called StreamYard. There's a few others. What I do ask is whatever app you guys are willing to recommend. I do love the ability to bring up whoever, right? Like in real time. I think that's part of the magic. That's one of the reasons that I love these types of things, because we can just kind of randomly and spontaneously have these conversations. So if anybody has any recommendations, please let me know, and Kyle and I will work on transitioning. So final words.
Good luck with your transition, Wes. We all support your decision, buddy.
Yeah. All right, dude.
Right.
Love you guys. Have a great fucking weekend. Talk to you guys on Monday. Later.
We're out of time, Mike.
Ray, you got to get rid of that hat. You got to stop wearing your old outfit.
Yeah, you need a newsy cap, right? Come on.
Yeah, this fucking Mercedes hat. Get out of here.